Buckle up, everyone, and welcome to Carpool Rugby League, a show where two rugby league tragics talk everything rugby league on your way to and from work. I'm Shano.
And I'm the chameleon.
Welcome aboard, and on with the show. I suppose, Griffo, welcome. Chameleon, welcome to the show to begin with. Um, I suppose some news coming out of rugby league land. Walters unveiled as Kangaroos coach. Had plenty of success with Queensland. Not so much when he was at Brisbane. I suppose initial thoughts on Walters being unveiled as the Kangaroos coach now that Mal Meninga's gone to Perth.
Yeah, initial thoughts were they've got to be kidding. When it was basically, it's been a few days, sort of everyone's known it's going to be him.
Yeah.
Look, Kevin Walters was an amazing player initially for the Canberra Raiders. He sort of was a bit of a backseat there behind Ricky Stewart and Laurie Daly. But he did play in I think it was their first winning grand final.
Mm-hmm.
I think. He certainly played one for the Raiders, and I think he won 5 with the Broncos.
Yes.
I think he was 6-time Premiership winner. There are very few people who can boast being a 6-time Premiership winner. It just, there would have been a lot in the St. George era of the 50s and 60s, where a lot of those guys would have been playing multiple times. But in the modern era,
very few.
I think Glenn Lazarus, he probably would have nudged that figure because he won premierships at 3 clubs.
He'd come close.
Canberra, the Broncos in the early 90s, and then the Melbourne Storm.
Yeah.
So I think he might have got that many.
He'd come very close.
Yeah, but really good player. By all accounts, an exceptional bloke. But I don't think he's a good coach based on. He said he had a good record at Origin. It started really well. He was part of at the end of that era where Queensland had all those exceptional players, and they could have won without a coach. They had Smith, Cronk, Jonathan Thurston, Inglis, and so on. But he was the coach. And then once some of those guys started, or Slater, of course, I neglected to mention Billy Slater. Then once a few of those guys started to move on, we saw Freddie Fittler come in and win a couple of Origins with the Blues, and then Kevin Walters got the sack. He sort of got the Broncos job. There was a massive push from the old boys, all his mates that he won those comps with. And eventually the power of those guys saw him get the job. They did make a grand final in his time there, and they should have won a grand final, but they didn't. But the other years were very poor. And again, he got sacked. We had players, and you never hear this. 2 players came out and were basically saying that Adam Reynolds coached his team. He's the Steve Bradbury, really, of coaches, because everyone else who has sort of wanted the job, the club coaches, in particular Wayne Bennett, there's the rule there that says you can't coach the Australian side if you're a club coach, which has meant, and then when Freddie Fittler, who was interested in the job initially, pulled out, the only person putting their hand up, and he seems to put his hand up for almost any coaching job that's going, is Kevin Walters. Look, he's... I don't know. It's just my impression. I just don't think he's a really good coach. We've seen, when players come out and say someone else is coaching the team, in the case of the Broncos, Adam Reynolds, that's a concern. He had a really good side at the Broncos, and things, after they won the comp, things went south pretty quickly, and he was out the door. And now Maguire's in there. They've had their ups and downs this year, but they seem to be on the up at the moment, the Broncos. It's interesting that they've only appointed him for the Ashes series, 3 games. For mine, the guy that I would have had in the job, and he didn't sort of jump up and down saying he wanted the job, but he was certainly was interested, was Cameron Smith. And for mine, he would have been my choice. Yeah. Look, I hope the Kangaroos win the Ashes. Obviously, I hope they win 3-0. I was actually just looking at tickets for the Wembley Test. I'm considering just going over just for the Wembley Test. I can't be over there for all 3. But I'm considering that as a possibility. It's a great tradition. It's a great tradition, the Kangaroo Tours. And, I go back to the 1970s, getting up during the night to watch Australia take on Great Britain. So I think 1978 was the first time I was doing that. You had the likes of, it would have been probably back then, Beatson, Rhodonicus. It was before State of Origin. I know Les Boyd played in that team. I've got a feeling they might have been the first Kangaroos to go through and win 3-0. I might be mistaken on that. But then in the 80s, the Kangaroos were completely dominant. In fact, maybe the 78 side, maybe it was 2-1. They did win the Ashes. And historically, up to that point, Australia hadn't won the Ashes all that regularly. Great Britain dominated through most of the 20th century, early part certainly. There were the odd wins to the Kangaroos, but from the 1970s, well, they've never lost the Ashes. So we're talking pretty much 50 years on. It's just been complete dominance. There were a lot of close series, particularly early 90s, where the Australians basically snatched victory from the jaws of losing the Ashes. I think Ricky Stewart had passed an intercept early, and it might have been the second test. But then there was the famous try, I think ended up being Rick Stewart made a break. I think Mal Meninga may have scored the try. You've probably seen the footage. But so it's steeped in rugby league tradition. These tours, they were big tours in the past. This one's just 3 games, and I think in the modern world, that's all we can do these days. But I'm looking forward to the series. It's shrouded in, again, a bit of controversy in that we've got talk of guys. The word defecting is being used. When I think of defecting, I think back to the cold, sort of the 80s, and people who jumped off ships to defect from the Soviet Union and become citizens of countries like our own or the United States. That was defecting to me. But these days, in modern times, it's people who have represented the Kangaroos, like Payne Haas, Big Tino, Fasul Malaawi, and even the Torres Strait Islander, Hamiso Tabuafido, who wears a mouthguard with the colours of blue, green and white, the Torres Strait Islander flag. but he does have a Samoan ancestry as well. And it looks like these guys are going to go and play for Samoa, which, it's under the rules, it's their right to do so. I just think we've got to tighten this up. But I'm getting away from the coaching issue, Shane. What's your thought on the coaching issue?
Look, I think my thoughts are bit like yours. I think he's a great people manager. I think he's rugby league. I think his ability to coach a team through a rugby league game is at times questionable. I think he's going to. I think as far as a people person, he'll do a good job for the Kangaroos. My question is, it's 16 all, 5 minutes left. What had they done on the training paddock that would allow them to win the game? And this was my problem with Origin and Daly, and we sort of see it come to fruition there. So I'm jury's out. Can I say I'm not sold on it, and quite frankly, I won't say I'm surprised by his appointment, but I am surprised at what would seem to be the haste at which it was. It feels like this is a hasty decision, and I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe
they've got to have someone there, Shane.
Yeah, I know.
I
just think that I think the what's happened to coaching your national team when it appears we have a distinct lack of candidates? That's my question.
Yeah, look, it should be the pinnacle, really.
Yeah, and that's where I think that
you should have a pinnacle coach.
And that's where I think that I think that I just find that's what I find strange, is that why would you bow out of something which to me seems like it would be the pinnacle of rugby league? But speaking of rugby league, we did have some games on the weekend, so we'll go through the Telstra Premiership games of round 20. So the Dolphins on Thursday night defeat the Cowboys 43-24. Sharks 31-18 over the Roosters on Friday. Friday 8 o'clock game. Panthers dominated South Sydney 30 points to 10. The Raiders 40 over the Eels 16. Bulldogs 20, Dragons 18. In what was a very interesting game to watch. I think many Dogs fans relieved many Dragons fans, sort of ruining what could have been. Storm 16, Seagulls 18. West Tigers 21. Adam Way his first field goal, beat the Titans 20. And if you've seen anything on social media of Desi Hasler, not a happy chappy. And the last game on Sunday saw the Warriors 20 in a last sort of second try from a field goal attempt that went awry. It was something really interesting to watch, because when they'd missed the goal, it looked like their ship had been sunk. Female, quickly go through the scores. Women's Premiership, Parramatta beat the Raiders 46-12. Dragons 18, Bulldogs 14. I think we picked that, Griff. I think we both. 16-14, Cowboys Sharks. 24-12, Titans over the Tigers. 30-26, Roosters over Broncos. And 36-20 saw the Newcastle Knights over the Warriors. If we just flick through to the NRL Telstra Premiership, it sees the Raiders on top, 34 points. They're on 15 wins, and they're flying at the moment. They're ahead of the Dogs on 32, in third of the Storm, and the Warriors, they're third and fourth, all on 30. There's a gap to the Broncos on 26, Panthers 25, Seagulls 24, and Sharks 24. That rounds out the 8. Dolphins in 9th, 22. Roosters 22 as well. The Dragons, they're 11th on 18 points. The Tigers are also, they're 12th on 18. Cowboys are 13th on 17. And then we see 3 teams on 16 points. It's the Knights, Rabbitohs and Eels. And down the bottom of the ladder is the Gold Coast Titans. Griffo, there was a lot of footy this weekend. Did anything catch your eye?
A lot of things caught my eye. Initially, it was the carve up by the Dolphins of the Cowboys, just the way they were shredding them out wide.
Yeah, that was
absolutely brilliant.
Didn't that game, it just felt like they flicked the switch. Like there was a point of time during that first half, it was like they flicked this switch, and it was great to watch.
Well, that was going to be my grab. However, and there was some really, a number of games went literally right down to the wire, down to the last play. But the very last play of the round, and you alluded to it earlier, was Leka Halasima receiving the ball after it had been charged down by Jackson Hastings, who did a great job to get to Tanner Boyd. Now, poor old Tanner Boyd, he was having a shocker. He had about 4 chances to put the Warriors in front with a couple of penalty goals, including one that was directly in front, about maybe 35 metres out. So very kickable when he missed it. He had a shocking attempt at his first field goal, which barely got off the ground. And then on the last play of the game, he gets charged down, attempted a field goal by Hastings. The ball ends up in the arms of Leka Halasima, who from about maybe 35, 40 metres out, just ran. Didn't think about passing, just ran. He went through the line, he went round Dane Gagai and won the game, broke the hearts of the Newcastle Knights, who were very, very brave in that game, probably deserved to win. But they didn't. They didn't get the job done. Tanner Boyd, as I said, he was having a shocker with the boot. But it all worked out nicely for the Warriors with Halasima, who, in my opinion, should be the Rookie of the Year. He is an absolute wrecking ball. I think he's still only 19 years of age. I believe he's a Tongan, from what I've heard. Obviously, growing up in New Zealand, I think he's aligned with Tonga. So it's going to make, those Pacific Championships later in the year are going to be very interesting, because it seems that more and more people of Samoan and Tongan heritage are choosing to play not for Australia or New Zealand where they've grown up, but with their heritage. So Halasima, he has been amazing this year, and he won the game for the Warriors. It was a massive win, because I think if they had lost that game, they would have been in some real danger with injuries to a couple of key players in Metcalf and Barnett. They could have dropped out of the top 4, but I think they should be able to hang on. They're 2 wins ahead of the Broncos. I think we've got 7 games to play, so they're not guaranteed top 4, but that win certainly makes it much more doable. Shano.
Yeah, I thought that was an amazing finish to the game. What was really interesting was after the match, the interviews from his teammates. It just were just so glowing on his football IQ that basically, that this young guy is just, not only does he appear to work hard, and his teammates were glowing of his hard work, but also it's when you get one person say, you go, okay, but every person that they interviewed on the radio or on TV when I saw it, just talking about his football IQ, so that the Warriors have a bit of a gun on their hands there, I think. So that was really it's really good to watch. We've got some games coming up this week, and we'll start off with the women's premiership. Anything else from last round you want to bring up, Griff, before we move forward?
Great win by Manly.
Yeah.
But
Travojevic enjoyed it. Kicked the
great win.
bottles over the.
You mentioned Dragons a little bit unlucky. Dogs got the points. Dragons probably the better team there. Galvin throwing that pass that was described, I think, as courageous, brave, etc. And it was just we got nothing to lose. If it gets intercepted and they go down the other end, they're already behind on the scoreboard. That was good play by Galvin. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think calling it brave or courageous. I mean, they're down on the scoreboard. There's no time virtually left on the clock. You throw it.
Yeah.
So, good job him. Dragons unlucky.
Yep. No, I agree. Well, we have, I suppose, to be kickoff, we've got round 4 of the women's Telstra Premiership. And on Saturday at 12:45 at Go Media Stadium in Auckland, we see the New Zealand Warriors taking on the Gold Coast Titans. This is 9th versus 10th at the moment. Both sides just trying to find some. I suppose both sides are trying to find some form. Both sides are trying to also find combinations. There's a lot of changes. You can see it on the Warriors side. The Warriors side have a few changes, and in my reading for the podcast, they're talking about basically trying to find combinations that work in defence, so that it's okay if you can score 30 points, but if you leak 36, you lose the game. So this is going to be, I suppose, in the grand scheme of things for both these sides, a bit of a consolidation match. It's hard to pick when you get those kind of games, because you sort of don't know. You don't know who's going to play. Taylor Fuimano's on the reserves for the Titans. Whether she comes up. The other one, I suppose, who's a big in for the Titans is Georgia Hale, and that's why I'm tipping the Titans in this one. I just think that there's a lot of Warriors trying to get their. I think the Warriors are just trying to get their team and their positioning and the right mix right at the moment, whereas maybe the Titans are just maybe a step ahead. So I've got the Titans with no real confidence away, but wait and see.
Yeah, I'll go with the Titans. I don't know too much about the Warriors, but I know the Titans returned to form last week. They got Jamie Chapman, they got Lauren Brown. We'll stick with them.
Yep, I agree. The next game is the Sydney Roosters taking on the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs at Allianz at 3:15. Looking at the Roosters and looking at the Roosters team, no disrespect to the Dogs, but it's just littered with absolute class players across the field. The Dogs aren't without their people either. But in looking at this, and really looking at the Roosters at the moment, they are playing some fantastic football. They're first for a reason at the moment. And Roosters might put on a show here. I think I got the Roosters winning well.
Yeah, I actually watched in full I don't watch too many NRLW games in full, but I didn't know the score. I think I only finished watching it yesterday, actually, watching it bits and pieces, Broncos v Roosters. And obviously the two top teams in the competition, everyone expects them to play in the grand final. Roosters were dominant early. Second half, Broncos scored a number of tries. Some of them were pretty, what I considered reasonably soft tries around Tamika Upton, who just isolated some of the individual big Roosters forwards, and the other girls just didn't get across. So good play Upton, but Roosters let him back into that game. Eventually hung on and won the game. They're doing it without the best player in the world still, who's not listed in Taryn Aiken. Oh, she's listed in the reserves, I see, number 20.
Yeah,
So we may see her, we may not. What we will see, I'm pretty confident, is a Roosters victory. It's hard to see them losing any games if they maintain this side, because they've just got too many good players. I think there's an imbalance in the NRLW. I don't know if they have a salary cap or not. But the Roosters are chock full of high-quality players. The Bulldogs, obviously, they started well. They won the first two games. But I can't see them matching. The Roosters, they are a big team. Really big team.
And mobile. That's
right. Well, most of them are.
Yeah.
The number 16, who causes a lot of damage, Amber Hall. Most of that damage is going to be done close to the line. But for a lady who is quite big, she actually does move reasonably well. And she's unstoppable, close to the line. So they've got massive forwards: Poulet, Butler, Nasio. They're all huge. And then you got Jasmine Strange and Koenig, who are not small, but incredibly mobile. I can't see anyone beating them. Obviously, it's hard to go through a season unbeaten, but they were actually, before the season started, they weren't the favourites. The Broncos were listed as favourites. On what I saw last week, I don't know why. I mean, the Broncos are a good team, but the Roosters beat them without Aiken. Throw Aiken in there, and they look unbeatable.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I agree. Next game, Country Bank Stadium in Townsville will see the Cowboys up against the Raiders. Cowboys coming off a win against the Sharks. 7th at the moment. The Raiders, though, getting absolutely walloped by the Eels. Looking at these teams, I think it's a bit like the Raiders. Sorry, a bit like the Warriors. The Raiders is that they're trying to find players and combinations. Borthwick, their coach, sort of hasn't said that in so many words, but in an interview sort of said, look, we're trying to find what works for us at the moment, trying to find the right mix of players. I thought, I find that strange, because I actually thought, when looking at some of their players and looking at some of the combinations, that they'd work, and obviously it just hasn't come to fruition for them. Whereas the Cowboys, sitting 7th at the moment, but coming off a win last week, and I think at home they'll get another win here, Griff.
You say there was 7?
What's that?
You say the Cowboys were 7th?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they had 2 wins, haven't they?
Mm-hmm. Oh no, that's what it says here.
I'm not disputing it. I think a lot of teams are on 4 points.
They are. It's a for and against thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so look, I'm going to back the Cowboys here. They've won 2 out of 3. They bring Jakaya Whitfield back in. That's going to only improve them. I didn't really rate them, but they're getting the job done, and the Raiders are struggling. So I'm going to stick with the Cowboys for this game.
Yep, I'm with you. Okay, so this is actually a pretty interesting match coming up here. We have the Eels in third taking on the Newcastle Knights in fourth. I actually think this is for mine. This could be the matchup. This could be the matchup of the round. This is both teams coming off some fairly two very good wins last week. The Eels absolutely dominating the Raiders, where the Knights more than got the job done against the Warriors. I think these are two teams. We talked about other teams trying to find their combinations. These are two teams who have actually got their combinations, and they're starting to play really well. I love to see the Eels win. I think they play a really good brand of football. There is just a small part of me that says they just lack. At times, they can just lack certain personnel in key areas. The other thing is, I think this game's made for people like Yasmin Clydesdale, out wide, Jesse Southwell, halfback. I just think that's what these games are made for. But Abby Church, side where you've got Abby Church, Rachel Pearson. You've also got Charrington in a hooker. This is going to be a cracking match. I think the Knights will win this one. I just think across the park, their combinations are really solid and sound. And in a short season, that's what you need. You need to be able to do it fairly early with the combinations set. But I think this is actually going to be game of the round. I think it's going to be very close, Griff.
Yeah, Para have surprised me. Again, they're 2-1. And they're doing it without one of their best players in Kennedy Charrington, still injured.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going really well. The Knights, I think their first game they weren't so good, but they've won 2 in a row. They've got the class of Jesse Southwell and Yasmin Clydesdale, and a solid team around them. And it's because of those two players, Southwell and Clydesdale, that I'm going to lean towards the Newcastle Knights here.
At Wynn Stadium on Sunday at 1.
Sorry, Shane.
Okay.
I noticed on the extended bench, Carpool Rugby-League favourite, number 20, Jess Kennedy, who's with the Eels these days. Be great if she can get a game.
And breaking, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, even though she's playing for Para.
That's okay. Still favourite of ours. 1:45 on Sunday, we at Wynn Stadium sees the 6th place Dragons taking on the 2nd place Broncos. I suppose Broncos took it up to the Roosters last week, really making them work for it. The Dragons beating the Dogs. It's funny, I look at this game and there's a part of me that says, could this be close at home? I just think that when I look across the teams, in nearly every position, the matchup swings. If not even, it definitely swings towards the Broncos, which I suppose is just why I've got the Broncos winning this one. I think they're going to win it away from home, Griff. They're just, again, it's that combination. When you look across the team as well, this is a team that's been together for a little while. It's had people coming in and out. It's it's got origin players as well. Not taking anything away from people like Hannah Southwell for the and McGregor for the Dragons, but just look at this side and just think, yep, it's they're a side that just know each other so well. And in saying that, I think they're going to win this one.
They'd definitely be favourites. They got a lot of class about them, the Broncos. But I like the Dragons. They're a very young team. a lot of classy, speedy players in this side. Obviously, Tegan Berry is their sort of standout player. Racing McGregor, as you mentioned, very experienced, very highly skilled. The Casey Ray Cyrus, the 5'8", is very, very good. And you've got the likes of Margot Vella, Indy Bostock. They're exciting. They're good to watch. I like this team. I'm gonna tip them in an upset, and it would be an upset because Broncos would be raging hot favourites. But I think the speed of the Dragons, I think they'll score a lot of tries. It's whether they can prevent the Broncos from scoring. Broncos are probably, more experienced. Well, they are more experienced. Probably a bit of a bigger team, but I like the way the Dragons play, and I'm gonna tip them in an upset here.
That's an upset I would be more than happy to see. Shark Stadium at Sydney, 6:15 on Sunday sees the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks taking on the West Tigers. Both losers throughout the week, narrowly to the Cowboys. Sharks, well beaten the West Tigers. Look, again, for me, when I look across these two teams, I just see that when you look at each matchup, if it's not an even matchup, it slightly goes to the Sharks. The Sharks are another team that seem to have, they seem to have a very solid team, a team that has very good combinations. It's working together well. Led around by Tiana Petatani-Gray, just absolute, now a household name in rugby league, really. She's a phenomenal player and has been for a while. And I think that's, Ellie Johnson, another one. Their names which are synonymous with women's rugby league. On the other side, though, there is someone, Kezi Apps, who was very, very glowing of her side's growth at the moment, who is saying, things are starting to click, things are starting to go well, and very open and honest. They're not getting belted, but we're not winning, but we're not getting belted. We're doing the little things, and we're starting to do them right. And I think that's the hallmark of a good captain, someone who can see the good in what the team's doing, and knowing that they're putting it in on the training paddock, and again, echoed by Brett Kamali, their coach. So I've got the Sharks winning this one, though, but I would like to see the West Tigers really hang in here, but for me, it's the Sharks winning this.
I can't see anything but a Sharks win. They have to win. They had a huge win a few weeks ago, but they dropped the other two games, so they're well down on the ladder, and everyone else so far has beaten the West Tigers. So if the Sharks lose this game, then they're really their season.
Yes.
It's very, very shaky. They can't afford to lose here. I don't think they will.
No.
Sharks too good.
All right, over to the Telstra Premiership. Thursday night, 24th of July, sees the 10th place Sydney Roosters taking on the 3rd place Melbourne Storm. Billy Smith, Chad Townsend, Victor Radley all out for the Roosters. Cameron Munster out, and Big Nelson out for the Storm. So when you look at those 5 names for each of those clubs, it will mean something. It does mean a little bit of a shuffle. So Wishart and Jerome Hughes will be the halves of the Storm. Tedesco ever reliable at captain, at fullback for the Roosters, is someone who's very keen and voiced his opinion, very keen on seeing the Roosters start to do the little things, heading towards the finals and trying to leapfrog their way into the 8 players. I think like Robert Toya, who's had a very good Origin series, and Marky Mark will be very keen to see that as well. Wouldn't you look at the other side? Nick Meanian at fullback, Wishart, Hughes, Harry Grant in at 9, the Arrow at lock. That's whilst without Cameron Munster, that's still a very solid team. Xavier Coates on the wing has been playing some decent football as well. Their forward pack always solid. However, at times last week, not the clinical team that we've come to see in the Storm. And if anything, this is the time of year where the Roosters tend to find form. This is where, traditionally the Roosters may be there or thereabouts, and then they come home. This is for me, I find this a really hard game to pick. I look at both these sides, and I think to myself, I love the Roosters interchange bench. Docker Clay, Butcher Linu, Blake Steep also there. At home, I'm picking the Roosters this week. In what would be an upset, I think. I'm picking the Roosters at home, Griff.
Yeah, interesting. I looked at the Roosters side and I thought, Ethan King, I'm not really familiar with him. I knew Billy Smith, I think he got a concussion, so he was ruled out. And he's a very good player when he's, available. But I thought, okay, it's not bad. Look inside. Sandon Smith back. I don't know why he wasn't there last week. It obviously didn't work for him. They put Townsend in, and the kicking game of the Roosters was, not great. Not blaming Townsend for the loss. He's only one of 17. But when you got a guy who'd been going really well, Sandon Smith, why wasn't he there? Robinson was keen to talk about what he believed was a mistake from the referee. I can't remember what it was, but he seems to do that every time they lose. He didn't talk about his own mistake.
No.
Which was the biggest mistake of putting in Chad Townsend instead of Sandon Smith. Now, Robinson, have a look in the mirror and, okay. You think, why did I do that? Well, he's obviously saw the error of his ways. And anyway, Sandon Smith's there. When I first looked at it, I thought, they're playing the Melbourne Storm, they're going to get beat. And then I had a look at the Storm team. And there's no Pappenhausen, no Munster, no Big Nelson. Will Warbrick, I don't know if he's played at all this year. I'm not sure. There might be one or two others, but I just looked at the team and I thought, I'm actually going to tip the Roosters.
Yeah.
So I did my tips earlier today, and it would be still considered an upset. The Melbourne Storm, for whatever reason, they're pretty strong favourites. Obviously, they've still got a good side, but I'm going to stick with the Roosters. They have to win, really. They lose this and they're, slipping away from the top 8. So it's really important for them. I'm gonna back them this week.
Yep. I'm with you. So on Friday, 6:00 game sees the Cowboys in at 13th taking on the 11th place Dragons. This is at Country Bank Stadium in Townsville. I suppose Murray Talangi is out for the Cowboys. Fainu is also out for the Dragons. It's amazing, like when you start looking at sort of a ream of players of who's in, who might play, who could play. I look at both sides, and really, the only one that I would think that would be of any notability would be John Bateman in at the second row for the Cowboys. Every tipster's nightmare is when you get these two teams like this and you just don't know what's going to happen. Last week the Dragons showed some resilience that we haven't seen from this side yet this year. Like they showed that they could play some football. That whilst they lost the game, they can do some things well, and probably I think what would be pleasing Shane Flanagan is that he's starting to see some sort of combinations. In saying that, there's still some of those sort of mistakes like Tyrell Sloan, just far out, mate. Just hold the chalk. Become a teacher. Hold the chalk. It's.
Why did he go in?
Yeah,
Why did he go in?
I know. Just hold the chalk, and I think that's some of those things that. And look, we talked about Tyrell Sloan, years ago being one of these up and coming players, prodigy type things, and then
ball in hand is wonderful.
Yeah, and this is just one of those things where, this kind of thing, he's got this in his game. I look at the Cowboys side and really, I suppose their forward pack, Bateman, Nanai, Cotter, sort of the back three. That's when they want to fire and when they're playing their best football. They will do well. Reece Robson holding the middle there in defence. Tom Dearden halfback. For me, all those players throw it in the ledger that the Cowboys will win this. I'm not saying they're going to have a great win. I'm not saying they're going to win it well, but I think at the end of the day, they'll get the Chockies grift. They'll come away with the 2 points at home.
I can't pick them, Shane.
I know. You know what? The Dragons are for me. I know if I tip the Dragons, they're going to lose.
Yeah.
So I've tipped the Cowboys, so that you might as well pick the Dragons because they'll win now.
Look, the Cowboys could come out and win by 30.
Yeah, no, they could.
I've
picked them. They're not. They're just horrible. The other team that does my head in is Newcastle in this regard. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, this team's got class. Dearden and Drinkwater, classy players. When Nanai's on his game, he's very good with, again, ball in hand. But they were shredded out wide last week. They were absolutely disgraceful in defence. Now, in saying that, the Dragons don't have anywhere near the attacking capabilities of the Redcliffe Dolphins, who are just quick. They've really only got one speed guy in the team, and that's Sloan. So the big advantage that the Cowboys have is, they got speed with the likes of Purdue, Derby, Drinkwater, Dearden's quick. So the Dragons are probably not going to trouble them for speed, but I think they can trouble them with the, attacking weapons, like the power of guys like Suli, Luciano Lealua, Jaden Sewer. And I'm going to back, I'm not confident, but the Dragons have actually been playing well. You mentioned they've been competitive. Their effort is there. They're just the ability to regularly score tries is something that they lack. So the Cowboys have definitely got that over them with the likes of Dearden and Drinkwater. I'm just talking myself out of tipping the Dragons now, but I've already done it. I'm going to stick with them. Dragons.
That's it. Well, the next game, Friday, 8 o'clock, sees the 5th place Brisbane Broncos taking on the 16th place Parramatta Eels. Selwyn Cobbo name, I suppose we'll go through who's named, because to say they're in is not necessarily yet correct. So Corey Jensen, Jesse Arthurs, Payne Haas. Now they are ones that pretty much they're in the 17 with Selwyn Cobbo named on the extended bench. Yongi is out for the Eels. Again, these are people who are named. Mitchell Moses back by the looks of things. He's going to be with Dean Hawkins. Dylan Brown is on an extended bench. So interesting to see if he comes in there. With Will Penasini named.
He's in the centres. Yeah.
He's named in the centres.
So he's back after. So was it suspension?
Back after suspension, yes. So just to go through that. Just to go through that back line for the Eels. Probably Lomax, Penasini, Russell, Adokar, Hawkins, Mitch Moses. So that's their back line. Look, this is going to be... I'd love to say it's going to be an exciting game, but Para have just found ways to implode at times this year in ways that you wouldn't see fit. Jason Riles, he could look like Michael Maguire by the end of the season if this goes on. Like, that nice head of hair and nicely combed is probably all going to fall out. Playing a Broncos side, which look, a fifth on the table, and in my opinion, aren't without their faults, but they have far too many guns to fire across the park at the Parramatta Eels, especially their forward pack. Their forward pack is just should own Parramatta in this game, and for that reason, I think they're going to give Ezra Mam and Adam Reynolds all the space they need to kick the Eels into submission, and with Reece Walsh at the back doing his thing, Billy Walters on the interchange bench, I think you're going to see. And look, it was with the threat of Selvin Cobbo maybe coming into this side. I've got the Broncos winning this one, and they could win it by some margin. Griff?
Yeah.
Could.
I have to agree. Just looking through the team list, I saw something I was quite interested in. It must be the first time this year where Mam, Reynolds and Hunt have all been available at the same time. Mam was suspended, Hunt was injured, Reynolds has been sort of injured in and out, but they're all there. And interestingly, Coach Maguire has put Ben Hunt into the number 9 jersey as starting hooker. Now, I think that's the first time, I could be wrong, but we've got Billy Walters, who's reserve hooker. Smoothie's being relegated to the reserves, an 18th man, and Corey Pegs is nowhere to be seen. So there's a lot of hookers up in Brisbane, for those who are interested. But this, I think Maguire's wanted to do this all year, and I think probably the reason why he bought Ben Hunt was not to play him in the halves. Obviously, at the start of the season, 2 months without Mam, but I think Maguire sees this as the recipe to success. You've got a spine of Reece Walsh at fullback, Mam at 6. Reynolds at 7 and Ben Hunt at 9. There's not too many better spines than that. So you would have to think that this team is a great threat, not just to Parramatta, but to the competition overall. They've started to find form. There's no excuses. No excuses. They may not make the top 4 if the Warriors can keep enough wins, because I do think the Broncos will threaten. I'm not sure entirely of their draw. I do know they've got to play the Storm twice, which will be interesting if the Storm can have their full side to see how they go against the Broncos. I want Parramatta to win. I don't think they can. I think Parramatta have been very good in patches, and pretty much all of those patches have involved them having the ball. Their defence is not quite so good. Riles has obviously got an agenda, which is to change the way that this team played. He's been successful at doing that. He got rid of a lot of players from the Para under the Brad Arthur era, when they were not really, you wouldn't call them a flashy side by any means. Now they're much more of a flashy side in attack. They throw the ball around. They're good to watch, very good to watch, and they can score some tries. But their problem is when they don't have the ball. And unfortunately, what's crept into their game in the last few weeks is a heap of turnovers, where they're pushing passes, they're trying to get on offloads that just are on, and then when they turn the ball over, the opposition will score tries. So, unfortunate that the guy who's been their best this year is injured, broken hand, he's out for 4 weeks, Isaiah Iongi. And that's really unfortunate for Para and for everyone, because he's been a revelation for them. Joash Papali is at fullback, which is his position. He's been playing at 6 because of Iongi, but Joash Papali is a fullback. What I am surprised by is the fact that Dylan Brown, and I know Riles talked about the future being now, but with the injury to Iongi, I thought he should have brought Brown back in to 6. Obviously, Papali at 1. Dean Hawkins is there, Footy Dean. I think Brown's a better player than Dean Hawkins, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Dean Hawkins, to me, is a backup halfback for when Mitch Moses is out. He's done a good job. But he's a playmaker, as is Mitch Moses. Moses got a good running game, obviously got a great running game. But I just thought this side would have been a better chance with Dylan Brown in the number 6. Riles doesn't really care too much about the 2 points, obviously. Well, he doesn't.
No, it's very true.
Otherwise, he'd have, to me, Dylan Brown's not a, $1.3 million player, but he's on big money at Para, and he's a good player. And he's even better when Mitch Moses is inside him. So I think it's just a mistake, because the future being now is not Joash Papali at number 1 and Dean Hawkins being number 6. It's Iongi. And Iongi's injured. And I think Para fans would, and I'm not one, don't get me wrong, I don't, they're not my favourite team. But they would be a better chance of winning this game if Dylan Brown was playing.
Yes.
And you've got a plan for 2026, but the 2026 plan is not Papali at 1, Hawkins at 6.
Well, you'd hope, if you're a Para fan, you'd hope not.
And it's just being stupid. To me, I mean, they might win this game. I don't think they will. I'd love to see them win. Don't get me wrong. It's, anyone who listens to this podcast knows that I do not like the Brisbane Broncos.
Well,
and as much as Para are, the rivals of my team, I will always want to see Para beat the Broncos.
Yeah,
even though I tip the Broncos, I'm be happy enough if they Para get the points here, but I can't see. I think they're going to get smashed, actually.
Yeah, I think they've got some, like you, probably some key personnel in questionable personnel in certain places. Look, the next game will be at 3 o'clock Saturday at Go Media Stadium in Auckland. It sees the Warriors in fourth taking on the last place Gold Coast Titans. For the Warriors, Nickel Clockstud is back. He's back in the side, and for the Titans, no David Fafita, no Big Tino, probably adds to the ongoing issues that Des Hasler has at this team. That I saw a rant by Desi online, and I don't know if it's real or not. I don't know if the rant was definitely him getting the players out of the showers. That was real. I don't know if the wording of the rant that I saw was real. Even if it was or wasn't, it was so on point to how frustrated he must be with the constant lack of care that this team is showing for not only the players around them, but for anyone that comes and watches them play. They are just... I've seen it in teams before, and I've seen it in my team, where they just get to the point where they don't care anymore. And I hate saying that about a rugby league team, but geez, it's getting to the point where this is happening for the Gold Coast Titans. They're not unlucky. They are making fundamental errors that NRL players should not make. They are doing things that you should not see NRL teams do. They at times have an apathetic approach to their set of six, where if they make 15 meters, it's like that's what we do, and it's like, no, you can say you're not last for, they're last for a reason. I get that. And when you look across, and I say when you look across their troops, it might give some sort of reason to it as well. But geez, do they do some things that you would not expect NRL players to do? And I would question whether they would do it either at another club or if they were playing in reserve grade. And they're playing a Warriors side who is fourth at the moment, who's playing some very good football. Andrew Webster just has this team humming. Not without their problems and not without their issues at times in games. They do have that 10-minute lapse where they invite teams back in, but they could invite the Titans in for 60, 70 minutes next week or this week and still get beaten. I've got the Warriors winning this one at home and winning it well.
Yeah, hard to argue with anything you say there, Shane. One of the most exciting things about this game is the return of carpool favourite Jacob Alikwinski.
Yep.
Don't see Alikwinski too often, but when we do, I get a little bit excited. I'll just put it out there.
No, why not?
Yep, I don't mind a lick and I don't mind a wink. So that's about as excited as I can get about the Titans. But when you look at it, this team has gone backwards under Hasler. Now,
Yes.
you talked about, you had some thoughts there, and I don't disagree with any of them, but it's his job to get these guys to perform.
Yeah.
And he hasn't done it. They were actually better before he went there.
And
I expected they'd be really a threat with a well-credentialed coach who's won competitions. And the playing roster is very good individually. not the team, not the 17 this week. It's pretty ordinary with some of the guys that are missing that you mentioned, in particular Big Tino. The Roosters are probably, and the Panthers to a lesser extent, doing backflips of excitement that he didn't come to us. There was a tug of war on for Fifita's signing last year. He signed with the Roosters. It looked like he was going to sign with the Panthers, and then out of nowhere, Nick gets his man. And then he does a backflip on the Roosters. And they wouldn't have been happy about that at the time. But now they're probably thinking, oh, thank you. Thank you, David Fifita, for not coming in, because he's a modern-day Dave Taylor. The whole train.
Yes, yes, I agree. Yes,
physically unbelievable. The things that we see them do on the field, incredible individual tries that they score and things that they can do because they're so powerful, but they just can't do it consistently. And what promised to be it was expected to be the number one forward in the game. He's a powerhouse, but performance-wise, unfortunately, just hasn't been there. And it was the same with Dave Taylor, who, as a junior, was amazing, promised so much, but then just faded away. And I think, unfortunately, David Fifita is a big risk of that happening. As amazing physically and as talented as he is, no one's really been able to get the best out of him on a consistent basis. And whoever the Gold Coast Titans coach is next year, if he can unlock Fifita, then this team can be a force. There's just so much talent. In saying that, Warriors to win this game. They'll be too good.
Yeah, I agree. A game I know you'll probably be at, Griffo, 5:30 p.m. at CommBank Stadium on Saturday. It sees the Penrith Panthers in at 6 playing the West Tigers at 12. I suppose we'll quickly just for the Tigers. I suppose there's no real there's no real massive in for them outside of I think Brent Naden's on an extended bench, and even then
I think Tui who used to be Isaac Thompson, is now Isaac Tui Tupu.
Tui Tupu is in.
He's in.
He is in.
Stains.
Yes.
I believe there were a few stains left on the bed sheets from last week's game. I only saw the mini, but apparently both teams were dreadful. In the mini, they sort of get rid of all the drop balls.
It was actually, it reminded me, and this is no disrespect to Penrith, it reminded me of a game, and it was where I got absolutely roasted by our carpool fans. It was a game where Penrith beat the Tigers by 1 point, and this is before Penrith were the Penrith they are now. This is going back many years. I think it might have been Cleary field goal, and it was just one of the most horrendous games. I think we used to do 3-2-1 back then. I remember driving and I said, I can't actually give a 3-2-1 because it was just, and it was one of those games. It was like you can talk about the way he. The Tigers fan will be talking about this clutch field goal, and you're thinking, mate, they should have won it by then. It's like I can't believe that we're excited about a field goal that really didn't need to happen. It should have happened a long time. And I'm always instantly drawn back to that moment of where you just go, wow, it was not great.
Right.
In saying
that,
it
looked exciting and just in the mini. Because I didn't know the score.
Yes, before. You didn't know the score and watched the mini.
Yeah.
Mind you, if they did just do the highlights, it would have been the shortest mini. Would have been almost a bite.
Yeah.
Anyway, But saying that, there was a side last week, Penrith, who played very, very well, and dispatched of South Sydney very, very easily. They've got some massive ins. Isaiah Yeo being one of them, Luke Cleary being the other, Liam Martin's in. Isaac Tago named as well. I think when we're looking at Liam Martin's on a reserve bench with Dane Laurie, it'd be interesting to see if Liam Martin actually pushes up through there. Griffo, I'm picking the Panthers, and I'm not going to talk about a team that you know far more about than I do. Tell us why your team's going to win again, and that will be number how many in a row if they do it? 7?
I don't count them, Shane.
I tell you what,
don't count them. You only count how many they've been.
That's right.
They've won 6 in a row.
There's
they're playing a couple of buys in there as well. So
they're playing some very good football.
Before the start of that run, they were 17th on the ladder at round 12. So obviously they've got their act together. And when I say they've got their act together, it's the defence that they've improved. They were good in the first half, I thought, against South. Probably could have gone, 18-0 was reasonable reflection. They scored a late try in the first half, which made it sort of a bit more reflective. Second half, I thought they weren't that good. South tried hard. They just didn't have any guns to fire. That's the problem for the Rabbitohs. But Dylan Edwards was fabulous last week. Casey McLean, he's getting better every game. And Blaze Talangi likewise. They were very shaky out wide, the combination of Jenkins, McLean, Talangi. And they're not perfect, and they're still a work in progress. But they're very young, and if they stay together, they're going to be the cornerstone of Penrith's future. No room for Paul Alamotti. I think he's got to be there. I would be resting Brian To'o this week, and I'd have Alamotti on the wing. They may still do that, and I hope they do. I want to see Brian To'o at 100% when the big games come around. He went off last week they said it was a cramping of the hamstring. Just give the guy a rest. Until his hamstring's 100%, Alamotti's is better than most outside backs in the competition. And he, week in, week out, he's showing that. You can't drop Jenkins. Jenkins has been amazing. The way of the future, maybe Tango goes into the second row. And maybe that's why they've said to Luke Garner, you're welcome to look around. Garner's been outstanding. He's got one more year on his contract, but Penrith have basically said to him, look, if you can get a long-term contract, we're not going to stand in your way. He's been so good, Luke Garner. A shaky start when he came to the Panthers. He had a few injuries, and he was the replacement for Viliami Kikau, and I know a lot of supporters weren't real keen on him at that stage, but he is a quality player, Luke Garner. I think Penrith win. I do like the look of the Tigers' side. I think, apart from Buller, I think this is about the best team they can field. I think the other one that's missing still is Samuela Fainu.
Yes.
But I think this is a pretty good-looking team. Taylor May was really good on what I saw. Again, I only saw the mini, but he adds a lot of strike power to the Tigers. So he's got to be dangerous. It really is.
So Sione Fainu?
No, his brother.
That's
Sione's
right.
there, but Samuela.
Samuela, no. Sorry.
Samuela, the big second rower, who I think is a fabulous player.
Yes.
Sione's there.
Yeah, he's on the bench.
I think it's a prop. It's old boys night for the Panthers. So there's a heap of old boys in the Tigers team there. I don't know. I don't think they'll be part of the celebrations. So I'm going to tip Penrith. I want to see them continue this run that they're going on. I think it's going to be quite close. The Tigers, they were very good when they played Penrith last time. It was a close game, and Jerome Luai was reading pretty much everything that Penrith were doing in attack. So it'll be interesting to see if they've got a few tricks up their sleeve that he's not expecting. But I'll be there. I look forward to this game. For me, even if Alamotti was number 17 in place of Matt Eisenhuth, I would be quite happy with that. And again, or even a late change, maybe put Tago into the second row and Paul Alamotti in the centres. For me, that's what I'd like to see. But Tigers, I think they will get the loss this week, and I certainly hope they do.
Yes, well, at 7:35 at Polytech Stadium in Gosford sees the 15th place Rabbitohs taking on the 8th place Sharks. Britton Nakora is out for the
it's a big loss.
Sharks, massive loss. Very big loss for the Sharks. Outside of that, they appear to be pretty much a stock standard Sharks side. Out for the Rabbitohs is Jamie Humphries, Keon Kolomatangi, and Peter Mamazelos. That brings Jai Gray back, so he's returning. Be interested to see just how fit he is. To fullback, it means that Lewis Dodd gets a crack at halfback. It's going to be interesting to watch. That's all I'm going to say. It brings Sean Kepi into prop for Kolomatangi. Lachlan Hubner, who's been fairly solid when he's at lock with Liam LeBlanc on the interchange bench, sees Jacob Host, Ryan Gray, and Ashton Ward coming into the side, who's interesting because he's actually, he's a halfback, so I'm not too sure.
I didn't know that. I was going to ask what position he is. I've not heard of him before.
What the thinking is there, with an extended bench that includes Shakai Mitchell. My heart says I'll pick the Rabbitohs, and they will have an upset victory over the Sharks. I just don't think my head is in for that. The Sharks just have too much strike power across the field. They've got combinations which are very solid. South Sydney for me, their defence in and around that 3-quarter line this week is not only going to get tested, I think it's actually going to get torn to shreds. It'll be big games by Aiken and Jai Arrow. Aiken has missed a number of key tackles in and around that sort of halfway section of the field and into the corridor, which really means that teams are making sort of 30 metres on a run, on a third tackle run, which turns a defensive kick into an attacking one, which is really hurting South Sydney at the moment. Injuries are not their friend. This is a team that when you look at 1 to 17, if I was to give this to you round one, you'd go, what has happened? And this is what happened. Looking at their extended bench and looking sort of at the players and looking at their 3 grades, South Sydney are a team in trouble at the moment, and I think I've always been very forthcoming when I've spoken about other teams' boards and other teams' the depth and whatnot. And this is now a time I've got to start talking about South Sydney. Their board really needs to. I know they've had injuries, but across 3 grades they are looking, if not last, second last, third last at the moment. Thank God for the Parramatta Eels. Their recruitment policy just appears to be at the moment non-existent, and they've re-signed Alex Johnson, which is great, but really looking to the future, they've really struggled. And this week we're going to see a number 7 running around who Demetria threw a lot of cash at, and we're going to see if he's going to come to good. So, like I said, I've always put the boot into other teams and their board. I think it's time to do it to my own, because they've got to have a very hard look at themselves, because whilst they've had a series of injuries, which you've got to start talking to their strength and conditioning team as to why it seems South Sydney seems to have so many of these injuries. The depth and what's coming in and who they've got to replace them is also questionable. So I've got I'll always pick Rabbitohs, but the Sharks will win this game. And I dare say they're going to win it fairly well. The kicking game of Jack White, and he's no longer a 5'8" and hasn't been for a while. That was evidence last week where South really were starting to mount some pressure, and he kicked it. He kicked it dead.
Bad errors.
Yeah, kicked it dead. Lewis
He
Dodd.
kicked another one out in the full.
Yeah. And Lewis Dodd, and what I've seen of Lewis Dodd, his short kicking game's okay. I don't think they're going to get close enough to know what a short kicking game is this week. So, yeah, Sharks, but yeah, Griffo.
Yeah, look, I think Sharks win well here. They got plenty of class in the outside backs, and South Suit, they're really struggling out there. They've virtually got no guns to fire. They tried hard last week. Pretty much every week they've tried, but the personnel's not there. And it gets back to recruitment and where you're spending your money. Obviously, they've got some marquee players, most notably Latrell, who has missed a lot of games for various reasons, mostly injury this year. Whiten's on big money, and he tries hard, but I think the best of Jack Whiten was some years ago, and they paid big money for him. So they're handicapped, and they paid fairly decent money for Dodd as well, as mentioned, and he hasn't had much of a go because they obviously don't rate him. And even when they had injuries, he couldn't get a look in. Well, finally, I think this might be the first time he runs out in the number 7 jersey. And by the sound of it, they've got an insurance policy sitting on the bench in number 17, from what you said.
Yeah, I look, and quite often Wayne Bennett, sort of that 16-17, is not necessarily the 16. They're not necessarily who runs out, but yeah. Yes.
Yeah, just no bullets to fire there. I think the Sharks win well, but there's got to be questions asked about the recruitment policy of this club. And the salary cap has been managed poorly. And
letting juniors, telling juniors that there's no spot for them, and them going on to do some decent things at other clubs, they've kept the Keon Kolomatangis of the earth. That's great, but it's really, like I look through this side, when you look at there's some in that back line, some juniors that's great to have. Totola, and then you start looking at who you brought in, and you're just going, well, like they weren't really firing for the clubs they came from. So
Kepi, Aiken,
and Arrow's, he's I suppose his form's been in and out, but yeah, it's funny. There's and probably one to keep for our report card at the end of the year, but I dare say that having people like Wayne Bennett come to your club, you do it for one of a few reasons. Number one, you get things back on track, which was what he had to do. And I don't blame Wayne for any of this. This was a situation that he walked into. But there has to be some serious questions asked of the board and the management there of where did South Sydney get certain value out of players, and to be honest, there's certain players have gotten absolutely no value out of. But that's probably a discussion for another day, because there's another game.
Quick one, Shane. Would you re-sign Cody Walker?
No.
When's his contract finished? Next year, or is it this year?
This year.
This year.
He's in negotiations. Would I re-sign him? It would depend on the timing and the money. I got it wrong with Adam Reynolds. Like I said, that I would sign Adam Reynolds to 1-year contracts in the hope that he would stay. That's where Cody's at for me. Like, his last sort of 18 months of rugby league has been somewhat short. Our biggest problem is, over the years, anyone that looked like they were a half-decent half or 5'8" has moved on.
Yeah.
I think Jamie Humphries is great to have, and I hope we keep him for a long time. I think he's got a lot of class about him. I think he's a very good rugby league player. Manly, I think, would be kicking themselves that he's not there with them. Looking at what's happening,
possibly, yeah.
What's happening down the track with them. My biggest problem that I've got as a fan is that it's all well and good to say probably wouldn't, depending on the cash. But who else is there? And that's the issue with South Sydney at the moment.
Yeah.
It's not so much the question of would you sign him. The question is, do we have anyone else?
Well, they signed the reserve grade 5'8" from the Dragons, I believe.
Yes, they did. And
his name escapes me, but
yeah, they did. And again, they seem like a club at the moment. That are just trying to chase players rather than just. They almost need sort of like the Phil Gould mentality. Look, before we buy anyone, who have we got here that's coming through? What holes do we need to plug until they come through? And what systems do we have in place for when they come through? They're going to be quality rugby league players. And, I think that it's not as if South Sydney has a poor or small juniors base to rummage from. They've got quite a good one. And like over the years, you look at their juniors that they've had. I just think the problem is, I think the problem is South Sydney, since Maguire left, and probably with the exception of maybe a year and a half with Wayne Bennett, have been very mediocre and have been happy to accept mediocrity at its highest level, and to the point where very good players have come to South Sydney and haven't really done anything. And there's no disrespect to people like I'm not having a dig at Latrell Mitchell, because I think Latrell Mitchell, the year he got injured with the hamstring, he was actually one of the best players in the game. it's funny that we look at a guy like Jai Gray who sort of blast through the ranks at the start of the year under Wayne Bennett, with Wayne Bennett tutelage, was the leading Daily M player. I think the problem with South Sydney is that it takes 12 to 18 months to get rid of bad habits and get rid of issues, and that's what this year was always going to be about. The injuries don't help. I just think that look, their recruitment and their board need, Mark Ellison and his crew, who have done traditionally a very good job. I think were led in a very poor direction once Bennett left the first time. I think the board backed the wrong horse. I think
Demetrio.
Yes. I think even when Sam Burgess come forward and voiced his opinion, for a lot of South Sydney fans, that's where red flags occur.
Yeah.
That, a legend of our club basically got told to pipe down. You don't. He played with a busted cheekbone to get a grand final win. No, that's if you're questioning the guy's heart at the club, that's a problem. I really think that South Sydney need. I think if Bennett was honest, he'd say this club need a serious reset. Almost like, let's just clear the decks. Let's just see what we got. We've got a core group of about 8 players who are very good quality. Let's clear the decks and really see what we need to create and see what we need to do. And you're not going to get many dividends in the next 3 years, but after that, with some strategic buying and looking at some very good young players coming through, you may find that you have that success again.
That's going to be difficult given there's two new teams
100%. That's the wrong time to do it, but I just don't see any other way out of it for them. It's not ideal, and in some ways, it's about looking. We're about to talk about the Canberra Raiders, and one of the things where people go, well, how'd the Raiders get to where they are? They looked at the next layer. They looked at Ricky Stewart was very open and honest about his coaching staff, about his strength and conditioning team, about what he'd done at that next tier, and I think that's also probably what South Sydney need to do. But yeah, they're I think some of the people that would have, people like Sam Burgess, who and Adam Reynolds, who would have done anything for the club, probably now have left with a very poor taste in their mouth. And sadly, especially for Sam, I'd love to see Sam come back, because I really felt when he was coaching our team, our forward pack was at its best and its most disciplined. We may never see him back. But anyway, that's the Canberra Raiders versus the Newcastle Knights on Sunday the 27th of July. My wife's birthday. Look, ins for I suppose out for the Raiders, Chevy Stewart and Sebastian Chris out. There are some ins for the for both sides, but mainly sort of filling up the reserves bench there. I just want to double check. We've got no, that's all good. I was just checking who we'd have in there, but that's looks all fine. Looking at these two sides, geez, what a forward pack. Josh Papali'i, Tom Starling, Joseph Tarpany, Hudson Young, Zach Hosking and Corey Horsburgh. That is really the engine room of the Canberra Raiders, and why they're doing just the perfect job that they're doing at the moment. They're allowing Jamal Fogarty and Ethan Strange to do their thing, with K.O. Weeks in at fullback. absolutely on fire. Versing a Newcastle Knights side who sort of are waxing and waning, more on the downside of things at the moment. They're really struggling. They're struggling in a number of areas. They're struggling to hold the ball. They're struggling to actually defend in the middle, which is quite, I wouldn't have said Phoenix Crossland and Jaden Brayley would have trouble tightening up the middle. I actually think it's more what's happening sort of in and around there that it's just, they're just getting like one after the other getting rolled through. A lot of teams are running wide, sort of engaging Fletcher Hunt, Bradman Best, along with their second rowers, and I think it's just causing a lot of fatigue, and when the forwards tire, it just allows for players just to slip through and make meters at will. Talk about guns to fire, in a side where we're naming Dominic Young, Bradman Best, Dane Gagai, they really do struggle to fire any guns, and I think that comes on the back that their discipline means their forward pack just has to do so much work in defence that when it comes to attack, they're gassed, and for that reason, I think the Raiders' discipline has improved out of sight. They're a team that is just firing on all cylinders at the moment. I think at GIO Stadium in Canberra, I think they're going to put a number on this week. I think we're looking for the Canberra Raiders just to put the foot on the throat of a team, and this might be the week it happens, Griff.
Yeah, I don't give Newcastle much hope. I think Canberra, they haven't really, as you said, run away with games recently. They did have a big second half last week against the Eels after I think they were down at half time. They come out of the blocks flying and then got a big lead, got a lead, and then the Eels came back and took the lead, and then in the second half it was one-way traffic. This team's got skill, it's got power, it's got pace. You combine those three things and you're a pretty good rugby league side. Newcastle, you're trying hard. Unlucky last week. Unlucky. They've got a lot of players short of their best side. But to be fair, I don't even think their best side would be Canberra at the moment. So I'm going to tip Raiders, and I do think they might put a bit of a score on the Knights.
At Allianz Stadium, at 4:05 p.m, it sees the second place Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs taking on the Manly Warringah Seagulls. This is a cracking Sunday afternoon football matchup. Tupanua out for the Dogs, the Shoop Dog out for the Eagles. They do have some key ins though. Bronson Sherry in for the Dogs. I'll just see where Toby Sexton and Sulka Fafita are on an extended bench. Lockie Galvin named it number 7. That has been very divisive across some of the Bulldogs fans I've spoken to. Olakau'atu in for the Seagulls, starting second rower. And I think that's pretty much it. Everyone else is a bench player, including Chan Kum Tong, is also
the carpool favourite, Gordon. One of the original carpool.
Yeah, one of the originals, Gordon. But yeah, this has cracking written all over it. Seagulls will be absolutely buoyed by their win last week and played, I think, some very good football. I'll go as far to say as I think that was probably the best rugby league they've played all year. In defence, they just did not give up. They just wanted to win that game so badly, and covering. And my criticism of the Seagulls is they lacked a steal that other clubs just seem to have that are in the 8. They've found something last week. They've built something. Obviously, Seabold has built something in this side that allows them to want to do that. Their forward pack is very, very good to watch. Jake Travojevic turned the clock back in some ways, and I think the team's actually getting very used to Tom Travojevic in at centre and having that extra, so that X factor out there. Playing aside in the Dogs, who are second at the moment, like we said, Bronson Cherry is back in the centre. Stephen Crichton, he has been phenomenal as captain. He's been an exceptionally good player. For me, if the Dogs are going to win this game, and I think they've got the forward pack to not only match it with the Eagles, but do what they need to do. For me, it's the halves. Matt Burton has at times taken a back seat. I really think that Matt Burton in this final push towards the finals has to fire. If the Dogs are going to do something come September, he has to be in full lock, stock, barrel form. He has to be in the form of his career. And at the moment, there's times where I don't know whether he's second guessing himself, but he really just needs to play his natural game. I think he's changed it to suit the power game of the Dogs. But there's nothing wrong with the high bombs he was doing, the short kicking game. I just think he needs to bring back some of the stuff he was good for last year. Sort of bring that back into the game, because that's some of the things I think that are missing from his game at the moment. But Lockie Galvin, if he stays at number 7, he's just going to have to complement him so well. And they're playing the halves combination, which is doing things better week in, week out, and doing some very, very good things. This is hard for me to pick. The Seagulls of last week have really made it tough for me to pick this game, but I am going to pick the Dogs. I think the Dogs will win this game, but it's again, I think these are going to be a very, very close matchup.
Yeah. What I will say is the Bulldogs have been a much more consistent team throughout the season. Manly have looked really good at times, and then they've had periods where they've been absolutely awful, to the point that Coach Seabold came and talked about, well, rugby league's important, but the thing is, we're all going to die. But ever since he said that, they haven't lost. So when faced with their mortality, they've realised that,
hang on, better start playing well.
Yeah,
only live once
before we die. Yeah, but look, all jokes aside, if both teams play to the best of their ability, I actually think Manly wins the game. I think they've got a little bit more class than what the Bulldogs have. The Bulldogs have got some very good players, and I think they've got a number of guys who are solid but not going to worry you. And I think two of them are the props, in King and Hughes. Now, I know King's now an Origin player, but he probably didn't enhance his reputation through that series.
No.
Jamin Salmon, I don't think he's a starting 13 player. I mean, he's a decent guy off the bench because he's versatile, but obviously Kickoff's world class, and Jacob Preston's very, very good. The big in for Manly is Hamoli. So they were able to win that game last week against the Storm without their best attacking forward. He is a weapon. I'm hoping he's back to full fitness. But I think Manly take a lot out of last week. They're going to get a lot of confidence. They've got plenty of pace in that back line, plenty of skill. And I'm actually thinking that they are going to win this game. It's an upset, I'm tipping. I like their bench. I like Bullymore. Sipley is a big unit. Corey Waddell's been in the starting lineup for a few weeks. He's pretty solid. And Simpkin, he's probably a better dummy half than what Jazz Tavonga is. Tavonga is a solid player in defence, but I think Simpkin's probably a better hooker. So they lose nothing when they make that interchange. It's going to be a good one. I think this probably shapes up as match of the round.
I think so.
I think most of the other games, I think they're pretty. I think they're pretty easy to tip. I was saying that I'll probably have a shocker, but
no.
But the other game that I think lines up as a potential match of the round is the first one, the Roosters and the Storm, two sort of, I guess, powerhouses of the NRL in the modern era. It's a long time since a team has won the comp that was not the Penrith Panthers, the Melbourne Storm, or the Sydney Roosters. It's almost a decade since a team outside of those has won the competition. So we've got two of the sort of modern day powerhouses on Thursday night, and two teams that are trying to put themselves up there. Particularly the Bulldogs have been building towards a premiership. They're expected to win a premiership under Ciraldo, with what has been a complete clean out orchestrated by Phil Gould, who did the same thing at Penrith.
Yes.
Systems in place, obviously, that are very similar. Brought a coach from Penrith, brought a number of players, and I don't think they're going to win the comp this year, the Bulldogs, but with Leo Thompson coming in next year, they do look a really good chance going into the future. They've got another young, very, very good halfback in Mitch Wood, who I believe, certainly not this year, but maybe next year or the year after, will partner Galvin in the halves. And what that means for Matt Burton, well, maybe he becomes a centre again, or maybe he becomes a fullback, or maybe like Reid Marnie and like Toby Sexton, he becomes a guy that they say, look, thank you for your efforts in building this club and getting us out of what was a bit of a mess. But I think with the emergence of Mitch Wood, who's now playing in reserve grade, still qualifies for flag, but I think that's the vision of Gould and Ciraldo, is to have those two guys in the halves for the next 10 years. But as far as this week goes, I think Manly can get the job done if they play at their best. The question mark, as I said, is on consistency. They can be very good or very bad, whereas the Bulldogs are a much more consistent football team. They haven't lost many games. I look forward to watching this one. And I think that's the last game of the round, is that?
That is the last game of the round. Yeah. Well, thank you, Griffo, and thanks for your thoughts with round 21 of the Telstra Premiership, round 4 of the Women's Premiership. Thank you, listeners, for being here. Griffo, as always, it's a pleasure to have you on board. Any final thoughts?
Well, I want to say thank you, Shano. I know you've been under some stress.
Oh, the computer was
technology has not been your friend for some time.
No, I'm not. I'm not too, and this is showing some age. So I can't be too angry with it. It's just needed a bit of a restart and an update, and everything was fine.
Yeah. Well, to the listeners, I am useless. I do not know how to organize a podcast. I am simply a voice that happens due to the efforts of Shano in putting it all together, and obviously
very valid voice at that, Griffo.
So thank you, Shano.
No, thank you.
Because without you, we don't have a show.
No, and thank you, Griffo, for being a part of it. Very valid voice you are. So thank you for
listeners.
those kind
Enjoy
words.
the footy. I hope, Shano, that we get another round where so many of the games go right down to the wire.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that what something that I think we, something that probably that it's sort of becoming highlighted is that if we do get a few of these games coming down to the wire, and a few of these teams who are on sort of that 2-bye sort of claim victories, it's there is a bit of a gaggle there for that 8th spot. So it's going to be interesting moving forward over the next couple of rounds, just to see if the Sharks Eagles, if Sharks Eagles win, I think Panthers will, their odd point really now is elevating them. I often say an odd point is as good as a win or a loss. I think for the Panthers it's becoming as good as a win. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the Dolphins Roosters do from here on in, because what we saw in the Dolphins, what we know about the Roosters, it could be very interesting. I know in previous years we've sort of had a solid 8 emerge. If this year what appears to be a solid 10 emerge,
there's only 10 that can make the 8.
I agree with you, and it's going to be very, very interesting to see how that 10 sort of jostle for positions moving forward, considering Sharks and Dolphins have a bye up their sleeve. And
the Dolphins, of course, they've got the bye this week.
That's right.
It's crucial, really, for the Roosters.
Yes.
They will drop off the pace if they get defeated by the Storm.
It will mean that everyone, how about this, as a bit of a side note, of that top 10, everyone after this week except the Raiders and Sharks have had their byes. So the Raiders and Sharks still have a bye up their sleeve. That's for the Raiders, that's just looking phenomenal.
Yeah.
For the Sharks, that's very timely.
I don't know. I guess next week, we might talk about who we think's going to make that 8. And look at perhaps the run into the finals, because obviously some teams are going to have a good draw. I'm aware that the Raiders have got a very good draw. They're going to take out the minor premiership.
I think so.
Apparently the Warriors have got a very good draw as well. And from what I'm hearing, obviously they've got some key outs, but given the draw that they've got, they probably will stay in that top 4. But I guess we can delve a little bit deeper next week.
Yeah, I think so, because it's going to be interesting to see what matchups occur. Top 4 may be sold, but that bottom 4 matchups, that's very interesting. As always, thanks once again, Griffo. It's an absolute honour and pleasure to have your thoughts. And everyone, enjoy your week, and we'll see you next week to discuss the run home to the finals. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, listeners. Have a good week.